Conservation Commission meeting of December 5, 2024. And open the meeting, call the meeting to order. Elevation of alternates, I think we have to elevate Ted. So I make a motion to elevate Ted.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Yes. Okay, minutes. There's the workshop and the meeting minutes. So let's deal with the first one is the workshop discussion.
I move to approve the minutes. They're pretty simple, straightforward.
Okay. Second that, and yes?
You seconding?
Yes, second. All in favor? Yes?
Everybody good?
Yes.
Thank you.
The meeting minutes?
I had some questions and now I can't find it, so,
That's how all of our lives are lately.
Unbelievable.
You're not alone.
there were some, grammatical things, but that's not important. But I didn't quite understand how it was left with SLAM as far as their, proposal to do that
The watershed
watershed management program, right?
Well, they went to the Board of Selectmen last week, and the Board of Selectmen endorsed the effort.
Oh, good.
So they're gonna
Right.
proceed with whatever warrant article needs to be on the warrant to make it official. So it's gonna go forward next, after town meeting.
Right.
It seems like it was a really good thing to stumble upon,
Oh, it
or
was-
however they found out about it.
I think it was well done in terms of the fact that they were pursuing this grant.
Right.
And that the grant potentially will be satisfied by a contribution, so.
And then the attorney said it would cost $3,000 for him to review the easement when we had it completed,
That was an estimate, yeah.
estimate. So if we're going to have to actually pay out of pocket, I would like to propose that we get a easement attorney to do it and not town attorney, this is not his specialty, when there are attorneys who do this regularly and would pick up on things that the town attorney might overlook. So when we get to that, I think we should look into having, since we have to pay for it anyway, having somebody whose specialty is easement
All right,
review.
that's something that we would have to bring up with the selectmen, for sure.
Right.
And I'm not sure that there is a great deal of difference between a specialist. I think our guy is fully capable. He's indicated that he gave the estimate for what he would incur.
Right.
So I think it's.
But why wouldn't you
So-
get somebody who's their specialty when his specialty is short-term rental?
No,
No,
that's
I
not
don't
his
think it's
specialty.
appropriate to discuss
Right.
whose specialty is what.
No.
When
So
the
I-
state of New Hampshire doesn't even recognize specialties in the law. You're a lawyer or
That's
you aren't.
interesting. That's interesting, I didn't know that.
And I think our attorney may be well versed in this area. He seems to be of the mind that he can, if he was concerned about his proficiency in dealing with this, he would have indicated it, he would have made the recommendation.
Right,
So-
okay.
And I asked him if he wanted to if he didn't feel comfortable, could he recommend somebody else, and he didn't feel uncomfortable about it at all.
Oh, good to know.
Okay. All right, with that, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Please. Okay. Let's see. Public comment? I don't think we have anybody here. Old
I have
business?
excuse me, Ralph, I have just a couple of things I bring to the board's attention. We started doing the conservation trail maps in 2018.
Right.
And we had the first printing was 1,400 that we did, and then in December of 2020, 4 years ago, we printed 4,000. So we started with, say, 5,400 maps. We're down to 700. In the 4 years,
It's a bestseller.
5 years, we've put out over 4,000.
Wow.
Okay. Is there any modification that,
Well, I
We
was
should think
thinking
of-
that sometime next year. We got 700, and that'll get us through, and again, most of the summer next year.
Right.
But we should maybe sometime next year start chatting about it and get some, you know, people, have some committee members review it in detail. Talk to Tim. He was the one
Yeah.
who actually created an awful lot of that map. And there's probably some changes, or I'm not sure yet, you know.
Okay.
But I think I was just impressed at how well we're, and we have 8 sites that we're putting them out now, which is, the village store wanted them. So now we have 8 places where they're
Okay.
available to the public.
all right, that's good information.
And the other thing is, I was wondering, did anybody happen to see this article in the paper?
Yes.
This is November 23rd.
Right.
Interesting, does anybody know who Sally McMurdo is? Is that familiar to anybody?
It sounds familiar,
I've
but
heard, I've heard the name. She's
Right.
married to, obviously.
Well,
she's married to somebody.
This article was quite good in that she took a bike ride around Madison, and she cited many of the trails that she was on that are in the map. So it was a little confusing to me at first, that, you know, she mentioned the map, and then she got into these paragraphs talking about her ride, and then talking about number 1 or number 4.
Right.
And it took me a bit to realize she's relating to the trail map number. It was great publicity.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
It all
actually
helps.
came upon them down on East Shore Drive.
I'm sorry, say.
I came upon them, she and her husband were riding
Oh,
bicycles.
you saw him?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it was back in June, maybe July.
I'm not sure, she didn't say, it was Friday, no, it's not.
It was one of the times the trees came down, because that's why I was down on East Shore
Oh,
Drive.
because okay, maybe that was another time, but not this ride. Because she said this is published Saturday, and Friday was a bright sunny day. Now, she couldn't have gotten it in there, so maybe it was the previous Friday or something. But whatever, it was nice to see the map was getting some publicity.
that's great, thank you. Tim isn't here. Chain of Ponds update, Doug, you have any comment from Doug on the communication?
I wasn't here when you sent me that email, so I haven't sent
Okay,
it to him, so
all
I
right.
will send it to him tonight. I just saw it now when I came in.
All right,
I'm sorry, I wasn't
that's
here.
right. Doug,
I was speaking today.
well, Doug indicated that he would like to have a session to work through the conservation easement. The comment I made was, we're not ready for that conversation. Our review is incomplete, and we need to recycle through the review and all that. So I told him to sit tight, basically, until we were in a position to complete our work before we have a session.
I did, well, a couple of things that we need as a commission to vote on rules and regulations regarding who and who cannot participate by phone. It needs to be according to the municipal association. It needs to be in our documents or rules and procedures as to what are the parameters for someone participating by phone. So that's something we should put on the agenda and
Okay,
address.
fine.
Now, talking about
Okay.
that, listening to the easement workshop, what I would have liked to have cautioned you about is that the L-chip and the Fish and Game grants have specific easement language that cannot be altered or changed if we want to take advantage of those grants. So therefore, without having that language to compare the easement to, it's kind of spinning your wheels, because things you may want to change or reword or take out may have to be necessary in order for that grant money to come through.
Well, that's an issue. I agree. There is a specific statement, L-chip language to be provided or forthcoming. So what we're doing is essentially dealing with what issues are important to us? What do we really want to get out of this in terms of prohibitions for use and all those
Right.
other things? And I think that's productive. And
But
I don't.
that may not be able to be changed.
Well, we got plenty of time, and all of the discussions are preliminary. They're not, that nothing is cast in stone at this particular point in time. I think it's fruitful that we review the document as it stands, so that we understand all the relevant issues. We haven't engaged a lawyer as a result of not having absolute assurance that the deal is going to happen. And we've taken that position. We're not spending money until we get to a point where we know it's a certainty.
But we know that the land is gonna be purchased by the conservation fund. That's a given. Whether or not we
Well,
go through the easement, that's not.
They haven't scheduled a closing date.
Well,
They haven't completed the survey that's required. So there are things that need to happen before they can even schedule.
Right, but it's not a question of money or whether they're gonna
Well,
buy it or not.
maybe
They've
it
committed
is,
to
maybe it
buying
isn't. Doug could verify for us that he has the financial capacity to do the deal, which would be a major step forward, but he's never stated that.
Well, I think he has.
Well, I'd like to have him
We'll get that clarified.
specifically say that he has the financial ability to close on the
But
deal.
even if Upper Saco Valley doesn't buy it, the conservation fund is gonna buy it.
Okay, but we're still not talking about a closing date. We're talking about a date that is up until, I guess the extension is up until November of 2025. So there's a lot that can happen between now and then. And I think our caution with respect to not spending money and doing what I think is appropriate, and that for us to do a complete review of the document, come up with our comments, and then when the deal is a virtual certainty, we engage a lawyer and we have an earnest conversation with the lawyer and present our version of the conservation easement. So I don't think there's any issues related to what's going on at the moment.
Well, if there's two organizations, and then maybe there's more, that require specific language in order for them to participate. Do we know, is that language in here?
No.
Oh, it's not in here yet?
No, there's a phrase, L-chip language to be provided. It's
It's, okay,
in section 6 or whatever.
okay.
So-
Thanks.
So they need to provide the L-chip language, which they haven't done.
Well, when Doug sat there that time with us and we were talking about certain sections, he goes, well, that's L-chip language.
Well, he hasn't provided it.
It was what we were going over when we were talking about the easement.
I have a draft. Let's see, where, the L-chip language is in this?
That certain things that we didn't like were in there because of either L-chip Fishing Game or one of the other organizations. They had put them in there because that was what had to be in there to get the money from those organizations.
But,
Hands off on that, those words.
Right.
well, let's, I need assurance that the L-chip language is available.
I think we need to have that in order to.
Well, it is not there. So that's a given. L-chip language is not in the document. Okay. So I think we've covered the concept. Suggest that we have an update meeting to continue, and I think we barely have a quorum here, so let's bring it up in January.
Which one?
We have a quorum.
What are you bringing up, Eugene?
This would be the continuation
Of the easement?
Of our review.
Our review.
Another work session.
Another workshop.
Do you want me to schedule, are we gonna vote on it in January or do?
No, he's suggesting that we
suggesting
don't
we
have enough
schedule-
members here to schedule it.
We schedule it where we have more
So
participation.
we'll talk about
so-
it in January. Okay.
January.
Just so I don't go scheduling something and then, whoops.
Right. Okay, property commitments, I think we've got commitments from everybody to do that. Master plan.
Well, we're just waiting for Joy.
Yeah.
I need somebody, I haven't done it before, so I do need someone to help me understand the process and all that, so.
Okay.
I believe you had offered at
She
one point,
did.
Ms. Marcia,
She
and
did.
I
Yes.
wrote you back in,
She did,
get
poor
you back on the
Marcia.
hook.
Yeah, we can give it a shot. I've never done it either, so,
Is there an SOP somewhere?
yeah.
I probably
Instructions.
have. You can like, let me get you one that somebody else has done and I'll send it.
Perfect.
How's that?
That'd be great.
Well, we have the form, yeah, I need the form, that would be good.
Yep.
Okay. Master plan, again, it's the same story. We're going to deal with that as we make progress on the chain of ponds.
But there's so much more to the master plan than the chain of ponds. I mean, there's so many
Well,
other sections.
Back up the truck a second. They've already gone, the select board is doing a warrant article for $100,000 for the
At the
master
request
plan.
of the planning board.
Correct. And the planning board didn't meet last night because they didn't have a quorum, but they want to start going through the master plan just the way it is right now because it is messy. And
Right.
there were 8 pages of it missing, which I found. So I can't find page 66, but I found the others. So I don't know what it's, if you try to read it online,
Oh, yeah.
good
I
luck.
know.
Because it's not, but we're trying, that's what they were trying to do. They were gonna go page by page and try to update it. Spelling, grammatical stuff, try to,
But are they just gonna do the planning board section, or they're gonna look at the whole master plan?
The whole document
the whole thing.
is
I
the
think
planning
I
board.
gave them
Just the
the
planning
whole
board.
thing, yes.
So the conservation piece of that,
Which we've already been working on. I have that, which people have already started on.
Right.
We've started that.
right, so I think since now the conservation easement or the whole chain of ponds things is sort of being pushed aside, maybe we should look at that again,
Well,
because
if
we
you're not,
have
if the
time.
warrant article doesn't pass, we're not doing
Well,
squat.
but we never did it with a warrant article before, we did it ourselves.
And the
Well,
warrant article is to hire a third party.
it's to
do
hire somebody to do it,
Yeah.
correct. To do the whole master plan, because the planning board, I don't believe, wants to actually do the whole thing. That's my understanding of it. That's
So-
why they had Jamal
Right.
Conway come and talk to them and give them a figure of what it would roughly cost.
So they would do the conservation portion?
Not him, he's moved on to another place.
No,
He's
but
not-
whoever they hire would do the conservation portion of the
That's
master
what they're
plan?
looking to do. I don't know if we're taking a shot at $100,000, that's what is a guesstimate.
Right,
Conway's was like 130 and something, so.
but they wouldn't do it without input from the conservation commission, would they?
No.
So-
We have a section
No.
of, I think it's section 8,
Right.
which is the master plan for conservation. Now, what I was suggesting is that we sit tight until we negotiate and complete the chain of ponds, because it is a huge change in what we are in terms of the scope and scale and all those other things. So we're not holding up the parade here by deferring it for perhaps several months or 6 months or 8 months or whatever. So it's not one of those things that we have this urgency to complete it at this particular point in time, particularly when we have a significant event that is coming up near term,
Right,
which will affect the master plan.
but there's so many other things that would have nothing to do with that.
Right.
Pea Porridge Pond is one of the things in the master plan, water quality of lakes and ponds. I mean, we could address that biodiversity in the ecosystem, natural resource inventories, maintaining the rural character of the town, the purpose and statement of it.
Quite a bit of that's in there already.
So we wouldn't change any of that.
Not necessarily. I don't see a need to change any of that at the moment.
I think we would need to have a workshop and go over that.
I hope we will.
And then with each of the town properties are individually
Yeah,
listed.
yeah. So it's all, quite a bit, what you're referring to is all in the current plan.
Right, but if we update it, there'd be things that we may want to update.
Of
in that
course,
order.
of course.
I think it's important not to waste a lot of time. If there's gonna be a warrant article going
Right,
forward
that's
to
what I
hire a
said. Yeah,
contractor
I mean-
potentially, we gotta wait until at least March to see if that happens.
Right.
And then if it does happen, I envision that contractor would be coming around at very least to these monthly meetings to sit with each entity that has a section in the plan to get solicit information that he or she would use to update the plan.
Right.
So I just think, I'd like to recommend that we take it off the agenda until April.
Okay, I'll second that. If you're making a motion, then.
Do you wanna just individually though, like go through it and just kind of highlight what you think might be conservation
Well, I
items? or
mean, we
you're
did
okay?
that, I've already done updated
Okay.
suggestions, as did Noreen, but they never were discussed. There are 9 pages of revisions that I've suggested.
Because everything came up with the planning board, that's why. Everything came to a halt because the planning board met with Jamal from Conway to see what it would cost, because they don't feel comfortable revamping the master plan on their own.
Right, but we're not asking them to do our section, we did our section
No,
independently.
but that goes into it.
Right, but we've always done that independently.
And they've started it. I didn't bring it down with me today because I didn't think we were discussing it, but you guys have already started it since I've worked here.
So,
There's quite a bit of work that's been
Continue.
done on it.
Right.
Quite a bit, I mean,
Right.
it's a
There's been
reasonable
a lot of stuff. Everybody's
document.
given input, everybody's given
Yeah,
stuff.
but
that's-
we've never had discussed everybody's input.
Because it kind of went to a halt because the planning board is now, had me have Jamal come and talk to them. So everything kind of stopped for a minute
I
because
understand.
it's gonna cost
Well,
money.
The other element of this is, and I'm being repetitious, we have a significant event that is going to change quite a bit of, significant amount of effort is going to be to describe our involvement in the conservation easement. So it's like, that, in my mind, causes us to, let's sit back and think about things until we get to a point where we're able to make the modifications. And we can't make the modifications until we're close to, or we're signing the conservation easement. It affects the budget, it affects the workload for the long term in terms of, it's a 635,000 acre location, and we need to review what our obligations would be, what our planning would be with respect to that particular situation. And it's not a fact at this particular point. So, and again, the timing is of a nature where we have the planning board facing a decision as to the scope and what they're up to and everything else. So, and there's no burning urgency to burn our calories at this particular point in time when there are events and issues that are forthcoming.
Well, I was admonished when I was chair that was a big reason why I was knocked off the commission, was because we hadn't updated the master plan. So I'm just saying, it was a while ago, 3 years
Well,
ago. there was
that's a
big deal.
situation beyond this board's control. I'm sorry about that it happened to you,
Well,
but in terms of, I've made a significant effort to modify the existing plan. And I think it's a respectable work product. I don't think there is any major issue or major omission in it. So I think we'll make progress in the future.
Do you know how many acres that we manage now over with all our properties? I'm just curious, I don't know. I mean, some of them are hundreds of acres.
Mhm.
So we probably have that much already that we're managing.
Yeah.
So we'll double what we do, but it's not like we haven't done that much before.
All right. What are you recommending?
I just thought we probably could put the easement, on hold for a while.
Yeah.
That'd be something that I feel like we haven't set any goals and objectives to accomplish this year other than the chain of ponds. But because that's being postponed, we need to set some new goals and objectives for the commission and
Okay.
do some, and do some other work maybe.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's move on to digitizing property reports. And we've got a budget line item that we're recommending for next year.
So that's gonna go for Warren, is that, or just gonna go into our budget?
Yes.
So, great,
Okay.
okay.
New business? Any new business? Okay, Selectmen's report, Joy?
Well, I have some things I'd like to bring up if we have a minute, as far as setting some goals for the Conservation Commission. We have 2 members whose stated reasons for being on the commission were because they were sportsmen, hunting and fishing, and they wanted to see us move in a direction that supported that more. And so I'm wondering what would be are we trying to create better habitat for animals, or what was their, they must have had a reason, Mike being one, to be here to work on hunting and fishing, so let's talk about that and see where we want to go in that direction. I think we probably should be educating ourselves a little bit more about the PFAS issue, which seems to be now a concern for the lake as well as, the wells around town here. And I personally know superficial amount about PFAS, and Mike, I think, is our authority here on the board because he has to deal with it, with the town. But I just think that maybe we should become more aware of what's involved in that and what the remediation is. Down in Dublin, the Conservation Commission for 5 years has organized 2 days in the summer where they have hired a company and they go around and spray to mediate invasive species like knotweed and bittersweet specifically, but they're on the list of the invasive species that they can mitigate. And I wondered, it's free to the landowner and you're asked to make a contribution, but I noticed there's a tremendous amount of bittersweet coming and knotweed coming in Madison.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if we should look into maybe finding out who this organization is that they hire. I mean, they do 15 people a day for 2 days, so they do 30 people in the 2-day stretch. And I just feel it might be something proactive we could do for the town to help sort of stem these invasive species that are coming. So that might be a project for us to take
Okay.
on.
Perfect.
Then the McNair easement, we put off until the land was sold, or the land is sold. The people have contacted us that they want to work with us. And so I don't know if we should look at that again to see if we can.
I thought there was a meeting with Tim, and that issue was resolved.
Tim was gonna deal with them.
Tim was dealing with it,
Tim was dealing with,
the owners,
Here.
the new owners.
oh, right, for their property, but I'm talking about putting amendments on the whole McNair easement that we wanted to do to get them up to best management practices for today. Because we had started that, and then we ran into a roadblock with Fallon because he didn't want to do it. He wanted to wait until the land was sold. Now the land is sold, and so we should probably
We
look
could do an
into-
inquiry.
Right.
And the issue on that is that it grew into a very complex document you were expecting
Right.
those people to sign.
Right.
And I think it was unmanageable, and it was never going to happen because it was going to incur significant costs for them or us or whatever. So, and, so we didn't make headway with all of the property owners. So if there is a revised position, I made a recommendation with respect to coming up with a very simplified modification, if you remember. And maybe we can make progress on that.
Maybe we can contact them again.
Okay.
And I think we should put the educational scholarship, because we always run out of time on that when it comes to the spring. So maybe we should put that on the agenda for January or so to be sure that
I
we're
think
not.
we have a budget line item.
Yeah, we gotta talk about that.
We do.
We're at the top of my list here.
Yeah, mine too.
Okay.
Maybe a brochure, we used to have a brochure for recycling that we passed out when people came to town to either register their car and
We
that.
hand out a whole 2-page front and side to everybody about the transfer station, what they can do, what they can't do. I give it as a welcome package to everybody that walks in the door.
I think it's available online.
It is,
too,
but I
actually.
give, when somebody new comes to town, they say, I just moved here, I give them that, I give them, I give them everything, I have a whole packet of things that I just,
But does it say where they could take things alternatively? Does it say you can take them to the, blankets or towels to the Humane Society or?
I don't have authority to alter that document.
Well, I'm just asking, I haven't seen it, so I don't know if
It's
it's.
right upstairs in
So,
the, when you walk in the lobby.
Get one and then we can take a look and maybe we can
That would be a
revise that.
select board
Well,
That would be joy.
as we started that, and it went to the selectmen, we didn't just do it on our own, but we put it together, but that was years ago.
Yeah,
So I think
I
that
don't
we
have
could look at that again,
authority.
too.
I'm looking to Joy, I'm sorry.
I mean, I feel like we need to be doing more for the town rather than just discussing the chain of ponds.
Okay, we're gonna go back to the scholarship, though, 'cause we can't lose track of that.
I'm done.
I feel like we're
Okay.
going all
Thank
over
you.
the place.
Well, staying under new business, and if we're creating a list, I think we need to make sure, not that he wouldn't, but just to put it down on paper. A year ago, Tim mentioned the concern with the spongy moth
Right,
impact
Yeah.
on the oak stands. I think it would be important to get an update on that.
And
Because
the-
he indicated if they didn't foliate, and I believe this spring will
Yeah.
be the triggering point. If
You're
they
right.
don't foliate this spring, then we're gonna have to do a harvest.
Right.
And I just wonder, we should
We could maybe ask him about all of them.
get an early update
Right.
on what is worst case scenario, because he knows roughly, he's cruised all of the properties.
Right.
So he knows roughly what he's dealing with, potentially worst case scenario if they all had to come down.
right.
The ash borer too, I think, I
I
don't know
will
how
email
that's
him.
doing.
Well, that hadn't been mentioned, but the spongy moth that
Right.
hit
Did
Oak
mention.
Ridge and the northern area of town that seemed to be the heaviest.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked Tim the question, and he said they watch it for the next year. If it didn't foliate, they'd give it one more year. If they didn't foliate, then a harvest would have to be planned to recover any
I'll send an
value,
email Monday.
as opposed to just, dying on the stump.
Right.
Sure. I'll
And-
copy you on the email so
Okay.
then.
And I understand Noreen resigned last. Did anybody say thank you for all her years of service? I mean, I think at least she deserves a thank you on camera for the many, many years that she, and the time that she put into the commission.
We'll draft a letter for next meeting.
Well, I think it's important, and it's typically the fashion of the selectmen to do that at town meeting. It's the greatest opportunity to have somebody recognized, albeit a few months later, but it'll be televised and everything. Typically speaking, that's when people are recognized for longevity.
But I think the commission itself could have just said thank you.
Yeah. All right.
I'll draft up a letter and.
Yeah, a letter to everybody to
I'll do
sign.
something.
Yeah,
I'll do
and
something.
if it's, I don't know how long she was with it, but I know
I don't-
when folks are with an
I know
organization
2
with
years,
the town
because
for
I was here
long.
2 years, so I don't know how many years before. How many years, Marcia?
I'd say she's been involved almost as long as I have. I mean,
Oh,
not
wow.
as long, but, she would come and go, but, and she has been a full member at times, but moved to an alternate, but, I mean, she did a lot of work on the easement and a lot of work on the master plan.
I'll do
and-
something.
Yeah,
And so, I mean, she's
Do
put in a big
something.
effort for
Okay,
the
do something.
commission.
How's that?
because it goes in the town report too, like
Mhm.
folks who've been in, so I don't know when Linda plans on going to print on the town reports, but
Well, it's
That won't be until February, this is
Well,
first,
it's-
first week in February, I think is when.
sometime early, it's after whenever the public budget hearing happens.
Right.
That's usually the last event that needs to be
Yeah.
captured before we can go to print.
So,
Okay, Joy, you're,
speaking of that scholarship.
Thank you.
There was, it's right on top. Yeah, there are conversations that I think both budget and or select meetings, there've been a lot of them lately, where something that we ran into with the recreation committee as well is that you can't necessarily use taxpayer dollars to make a donation to something else. So that might have to either be a warrant article, like the charitable warrant articles.
So just not in our budget per se, but
Correct.
something separate from the budget.
There was possible discussion of the gift account, but I
There's
do
not
not
enough in
know
there.
enough about it
Yeah,
to.
no.
there's not,
There's $260
there's not any
in
money
there.
in that gift account.
And
So-
it did come from the gift account, I think, last year,
It
did.
but that kind of depleted the gift account.
Correct.
So now we have to
Exactly.
figure a new source of funding if we're gonna do it.
Yeah, so that would probably be a warrant article.
Yes. I think
And
so.
then, yeah, and then it's incredibly nice idea, And rec though, like when it came to, again, kind of sponsoring kids for summer camp, the Ospey Children's Fund is so wonderfully generous that rec decided to stop trying to reinvent the wheel or duplicate efforts or whatever, and the Ospey Children's Fund supports a lot of kids in Madison Rec to go to summer camp and things like that. So I didn't know if, I'm not saying don't move ahead
Right,
with it, but just
right.
something to consider is that this would obviously have a very specific purpose from the Conservation Commission for conservation camps.
And we could, I mean, initially we had talked about Tin Mountain Camp, or I think there was another one, I don't remember off the top of my head, but, you know, but we just never got it going in time so that the school could nominate someone and we could.
Oh, I put a lot of work into that.
Yep.
A ton of work. I researched Tin Mountain, Bear Camp, I can tell you, I have,
Okay.
and
No, but-
nothing happened though. I did all this work and then
It still holds.
it just,
Right.
nothing
It's still
came
good?
of it. No, I know, but I did all this work and then we get to it and then nothing happens and
Yeah.
so I.
Well, in Tamworth, it was this counselor who did it, and she would come to me, and we would recommend people, but it was put on the plate of the school counselor to find and nominate people, because she was the one who was more aware of the needs of the families. So, maybe we draft a letter specifically to the school counselor, and if we don't get a response by a certain time, we move on to something else.
So
We
my,
can try
my, my purpose was just to bring up the funding of it.
Right.
Right, me too.
Right.
That's where I was.
So do we
we're
need
all
a
on the
warrant
same
article
page.
for, we need a
That, I
warrant?
believe, was Linda's recommendation on how
Yes.
best to do it, would
Okay.
be a
Yes.
warrant article and not.
We've been talking about it because we're both like, ooh.
But even if we go to a private camp like Bear Camp or Tin Mountain, we still couldn't do it from our funds here.
Because it is
Gotcha.
like a charitable.
Right.
So we
Because it's a
probably,
donation of taxpayer.
so let's put it on the agenda for early next year so that we can get going on this.
Oh, well, we,
Well, if you want an warrant
We need-
article, you should do
You
that
gotta do
soon.
it now.
Yeah.
Right, can't do it, can't put it on there, you gotta,
what was the
Sorry.
dollar amount that we were looking?
400.
$400.
Oh,
so,
you had 500 in the budget.
Mhm.
I paid flat
Okay.
400, but
And then we have to decide what we want to do, if it's an individual one person or if we're going to do more of a group activity that we did last year. But are you saying the group activity wasn't as successful? You know, they came and they,
Don't recall.
right, so,
I didn't have as, my boots weren't as on the ground as often at summer camp this year.
I mean, my thought was the more kids you reach, the better you are, but if it's not, but if we want to sponsor a child, then that's a different story.
Yeah.
so
So
there was a lot
for,
of discussion about essays and everything else, so.
I'm not
Rec
gonna
did,
get an essay.
Rec did something similar to that to have counselors in training this year. Kids going into 8th grade were invited to come be counselors in training. They had to write an essay and kind of demonstrate a certain willingness to be a leader and things like that, so.
Well, I think those are all the things we have to figure out.
Yep. But in terms of the financial piece of it,
Yes, we have to need to write more an article.
you need to write a warrant article, so we need to come up with some
Some
wording,
description.
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So Marcia, do you want to contribute to that as far as a definition of what the warrant article is for?
Well, but as a committee, do we need to decide if we want to do group activities or just sponsor a single child?
I think you can write the warrant article
More general
generic
than that.
enough that it would
Either
be
or.
for this activity.
It
And I
would
don't know
be,
if it's.
you know,
Some
educational
Right.
educational experience geared towards nature and all of that.
Right,
Yeah.
so do you want me to write the warrant article?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to send it
Hmm?
to me? Do you want her to send it to me so that I
Yeah,
can?
send it to Kate,
Yeah, I
please.
just- Yep,
I just want to get it in so that we're not
Right.
like
Last minute, like you
chasing
said,
our
we usually
our
are.
tail.
Very general description saying that it's, you know,
Why don't I bring it to the board and read it to you first, and then you can adopt it, and then.
All
so
right.
I'll
You
bring
have
it-
time in January.
all right, January.
Okay.
January's meeting, we'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
January.
And that kind of reminds me, I'm also running my mind through the warrant now, and there is usually an annual warrant article for the force maintenance account.
Oh, yeah, 10,000 and 5,000.
So I think the number had not been plugged in yet into the last copy that I saw of the draft warrant. So I think, is 10,000 going to continue to be?
Is that gonna be
The
enough, or
desired
would you
amount?
have a separate one for the attorney's fees?
Well, that's the issue too, in terms of we can't use the forest management account for things
That's
such
right.
as
That's right.
the lawyer's fees and things of that nature.
So it has to be separate.
And what is, when the easement comes up in terms of, and when the closing happens, there's a series of things that we will participate in. One is the baseline report and the forest management report. These are things that I'm not, and Doug isn't here, so I was going to ask him our level of participation in that. I'm sure it will incur additional cost from Tim and maybe others with respect to those two elements that we will need to review and need to have a position on. So there's going to be a cost associated with that. So, and I believe when I talked with you and Linda, the issue was
Here for Tim's estimated fee for conservation.
we talked about it going into the capital reserve, that we needed a warrant article to go in the capital
That's right.
reserve. So we wouldn't have the impediments in the forest management account. So I was thinking, just to be safe,
And we usually ask for 5,000
so
Which,
for the capital reserve fund.
we asked for 5. I
Land
would
acquisition and
increase, I would
conservation
increase
purposes.
that to
Right.
7.
and that will cover the attorney and possibly these other charges.
Well, actually 8 would cover the attorney.
Because I think we talked about taking the attorney from that
Right.
fund.
So, and we do have money in the capital reserve
Right.
at this point, 66,000. So I would suggest that we increase our warrant article by at least $3,000.
So for the capital reserve account, 8,000.
Right.
Now, could we take the lawyer fees out of the land use change tax account? Because we have more in there now, and I'm wondering if that would cover under the umbrella that would let us take it from there.
The correspondence that we reviewed did not cover that particular aspect, so I don't know what the limitation is on that.
I mean, I think it could come either way, either from either.
Oh, we have
account.
enough in the capital reserve if we...
Right.
if
We've
we-
never taken anything out of it. I think it's a perfect
So-
reason to take it out.
Right. So I think we're in good shape if we...
So, I'm gonna do this again, I've done this probably 5 times. I've talked to Cordell, I suggested to him in an email that we go to town meeting and appropriate the funds from the capital reserve fund for the land acquisition. And he agreed with me when I told him that, because we were going back and forth about the forest maintenance account, and
Right.
we said no. And I suggested to him, we should go this route, and he said yes.
What do you mean from the land acquisition? Do you mean the land use change tax?
To have the town meeting appropriate the funds from the capital reserve fund for land acquisition to purchase the conservation, to do the fees.
Okay.
The purpose of this fund, land acquisition and conservation purposes, is certainly broad enough to include legal fees and closing costs related to the purchase of a conservation
Right,
easement.
right.
He has no concern about that, but what you were suggesting before, no, we can't do, and I've said that probably 5 times now.
Well, which,
All right,
About taking from the forest maintenance account, we can't
No, I
touch
understand.
that.
I think we resolved the
I said
we
land
resolved
use
the
change
issue.
tax account.
However, it's not as simple of, the warrant article that we've always put up is a contribution to that capital reserve. You can't spend that money. You'd need a different warrant article worded differently to be funded from the existing capital reserve, i.e. not new taxation, but basically creating a fund funded by what we've already got in capital reserve so that it can now be spent. Just increasing the warrant article that is planned from $5,000 to $8,000 won't do anything for you, because it's just a contribution into the capital reserve and doesn't authorize expenditure.
All right.
There's the 2 different votes. There's the votes to contribute to the fund and then the vote to withdraw from the fund.
Okay.
Contributing is by taxation.
Right, and withdrawing is by taxation.
Well, it's all taxation, but
all,
it's,
right.
the fact is, new money or old money. Just making a new contribution doesn't authorize you to spend anything.
Right.
You need it written differently, that it's not a raise and appropriate, well, it is, everything's raising and appropriating, but the appropriation comes from the account that's already established.
All right, this is my email, I'm gonna do this again.
Two
To
separate
Cordell.
ones.
And I told him that supposedly the Akbar Saco Valley Land Trust will not be able to close on the conservation easement until 2025 because of due diligence on their part. I believe once the conservation easement is finalized, I'd be sending it to you for review, but they are still in the early stages of negotiation on that. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what roughly would your fee be, that's all that stuff, and closing costs. Is it possible that the MCC do a warrant article, go to town meeting and ask for a certain amount to cover legal costs to maybe come from the Capital Reserve Fund land acquisition account? And would this purpose fall under the quote, for the purpose of land acquisition and conservation purposes, which is our warrant article for $5,000,
Right.
since they are buying the conservation easement? And he responded back to me and said, explained, oops, wrong one, sorry. I got way too many emails from him. He was not comfortable with the forest maintenance account at all. And he said he thinks the other option I suggested, which is what I just read to everybody, to have the town meeting appropriate the funds from the Capital Reserve Fund for land acquisition. The purpose of this fund, quote, land acquisition and conservation purposes, is certainly broad enough to include legal fees and closing costs related to the purchase of a conservation easement. I would have no concern about that.
Okay.
I think what Mike is saying
That's
is it has to
what-
be two separate
Right.
warrant articles.
If
Right. I follow you
All
on
right,
that,
well,
but I
okay.
just am trying to, you know, what.
Right, but what it may be 3 warrant articles instead of 2.
For,
The 2 that are planned are a $5,000 contribution into the fund
into the
and
fund.
$10,000 out of the forest maintenance fund to sit in a spot to be expended, the work that Tim does and other things that we can
Which goes into the
legitimately.
forest maintenance account.
Correct.
Yes, that's fine.
But the third one would have to be a warrant article funded by
Which,
the capital reserve, which creates another
which is what you were gonna
account
write
to
up,
be
correct?
expended.
Okay.
That's what we just decided, weren't you going
All
to
right,
do it?
so-
once?
I'm writing
Getting
up-
I
so
think
confused.
we'll sort it
I'm writing
out
up the
when,
warrant article for the education piece.
Okay, sorry, there's way too many warrant articles going
All right.
around here.
so I think,
But it is 3 warrant articles, you're right.
all right, so work in process. So we'll do,
It's actually 4 warrant articles.
all right.
So we have the standing one to set aside $10,000 to be
$10,000 for
expended
Tim.
over the course of the year for
That's Tim's.
Tim's
Correct.
forest maintenance. Where do we fund that? Like what goes into that?
That's
What
where,
feeds it?
like, if we do a timbering operation and we generate
Like timber
revenue
taxes and
from.
stuff.
Right.
No,
It comes out.
no, a timber sale on
Right.
town property.
Like when we did the, out here,
Yeah.
Right, the
That-
ward
a
parcel.
portion of that went into the forest maintenance.
All of the, whenever we cut trees, generally speaking, Tim markets them,
And that money,
and that money goes into that fund.
correct. So the second I want to leave the $5,000, which is what we normally do
Right.
anyway. The third one
Is
is,
gonna be an expenditure article relative to the,
cover land
Land
acquisition
Land-
costs.
right.
Right.
Right, but it's written differently than the typical article that we use to just raise and appropriate $5,000 to go into that fund. What we're
Right.
talking about is raise and appropriating $3,000.
And that's what his email says.
That appropriation to come from
And that's
that
what he's,
fund.
right, and that's what he's saying about a land acquisition fund.
So if it's an estimate of $3,000, should we ask for $4,000 and then we can always return it to the fund, but we won't have to come and get more?
Well, the 3,000 is the lawyer's fee.
Right.
As estimated though, could be more.
What if we
That's
did
not
this?
closing costs,
What
that's
if we
just
didn't
his
do the
fee.
contribution to the fund and raise and appropriated $5,000 and put it into
ETF?
to be an expendable trust fund, separate from what, to be for these legal purposes whenever they may occur.
And there are some, I know there's gonna be some cost when we close.
Yeah, the
There's
closing
gonna
costs.
be, in addition to the legal fees, there's gonna be filing costs and
Yep, all kinds
associated
of
legal
stuff.
fees. Then there's the issue, I know there's gonna be an incremental amount of work that Tim is going to do. Now, that may be able to come out of the conservation land use, because, conservation,
Well-
land, because it's related to
Right.
to that particular function. It's the baseline report. Now,
He's gonna have to review that.
it's gonna be a review, and then there's the forest management plan that is going to have to be done. Whether or not we're contributing to that, which I suspect we're gonna have our input into that particular exercise. So I think we're gonna incur some additional costs associated with just the fact that we need to do some work at the closing.
What we don't know is if that 213,000 that we have committed covers that, if that was in the, you know, when they said that that's what they would like us to give them, if that included those things, we don't know that.
I would-
No, I doubt it.
Doubt it.
It's, we didn't
looking for that,
specify
yeah.
any cost associated
Typically, when
with.
you buy property, you're paying a price for it, and then all the closing
Well,
costs are
But
separate.
at the time, that was all the money we had. So if they were expecting us to give more, then
Maybe, yeah, maybe
when we had no
it's-
place to take it from. So that's why I'm thinking that it might have been included, so we probably should get that clarified.
Well, I think it's a couple of $1,000 issue of additional cost.
I personally would prefer to keep the article that we always have on the table, and then another article to expend, but depending on where the budget falls and what the selectmen, I mean, in prior years, selectmen have asked us not to ask for the 5,000 because the budget was so much higher.
Right.
So I think, you know, if getting input from the selectmen on that would be a good thing to decide whether or not we go for the additional 5,000, or if we, because to me, it's two very separate things.
It's a very heavy financial year. We had the ABC meeting, the budget committee meeting 2 days ago, and the warrant, the budget is still around that 3 whatever million. The warrant alone, because we're looking for $500,000 for road paving, $500,000 for the grader, 63,000 something.
Wait a
for
second,
the-
it's not $500,000 for the grader, it's like $67,000. One payment in this year's budget.
Per year, but for 7 years, but the total cost to the town
Right, but
with
you can't.
financing is
You
that.
can't present a one, because that paving article is $500,000 for 2025.
Yep.
That's 1 year. You can't present those two together. They add to almost $1 million, but that's not a true statement for 2025.
Well, other items that we have are $166,000 for the
Damn.
the dam.
Yes,
I
it
knew it
is.
was damn,
For
I
the
just
dam
something
study,
wrong.
$100,000 for the SLAM watershed management study, which should be a loan that should be forgiven, but it still has to go on the warrant.
Right.
$67,000 for a police car. It's adding up a lot this year, and next year is going to be even worse though, because the expense to fix the dam, if it should all hit next year, once we have this $166,000 study, would be $2 million, a year in the estimate of $2 million. So we
Well,
definitely need
We've
a capital
also
improvement plan to be pacing ourselves.
used the argument that the town should decide. If they feel that they don't want to fund it this year, then they'll vote it down, and if they do want to fund it, they'll vote it up. So by not putting it on, you take that choice away from them.
Yep, there's that to be said. So,
I mean, we certainly can understand if they vote it down, but
Okay, I think you were
it's
gonna
small potatoes in the
mention
big picture anyway.
the down trees issue.
Oh, I got that, that's right here.
That's coming up?
That's right
Okay.
here.
All right.
all right, so we all set, so.
Joy, are you done?
I don't know, let me say,
Totally off tangent here.
Because yes, so one thing that came up in the budget and or select board review of the budget was the $3,000 in legal fees for the review of the Crow property easement. That was a new line in the budget this year? Yes?
That's what we were just talking about.
That was the we were just talking about for Cordell to review the easement.
Okay.
That's what that $3,000 is.
I hadn't heard Crow. Crow was the only
That's the family
Same.
given.
That's the family,
The
it's the
property.
seller.
McNair.
That's the seller.
So it's,
No, not McNair.
No,
McNair's a different
Crow
property.
is the seller of the chain of pubs.
okay, thank you.
Chain of
I know, there's
properties.
too much, I'm doing the same thing.
All right, okay.
Yes.
All right, so that ties
That's
into
what
that
that is, that's
conversation.
Cordell's fee to review the easement.
Okay. So it's a
It could
piece
be
of
an
it.
estimated on the high side, but I'd
But
rather
if
be
that's
safe
in the
than sorry.
budget, then what, we just wasted like 20 minutes talking about a warrant article. If it's in the budget,
Right, we're doing, that's,
But we
But there were
can't,
questions as to whether or not it should, I don't know.
I don't think it should be in the budget, because we should pay for it with the funds that we have, rather than raising it by taxation.
yeah, it was voted to be in the budget last month.
Okay.
I don't know if there's you as a, you know, as a money person in town, whether or not you feel there's a better way to do it, or if Linda would have advice as to what's.
well,
the
no,
better
but
way.
it's potato.
Yeah,
Right.
It's gonna be taxation no matter what,
right,
whether you put it in. But if it's gonna be in the operating budget, I got no problem with that, but you don't wanna do a warrant article too.
Right.
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 Right,
But we have it sitting, and, I mean, we've never used any of that money that we've collected every year. This is a perfect opportunity to use some of that money, and it wouldn't increase our budget by a big percentage, causing attention to at town meeting. So I think it makes more sense to write a warrant article and take it out of existing funds.
Okay, this is,
What do you think?
all right, we're covering the 3,000 in two places.
Right.
Effectively two
Yeah.
places. Which is the preferable place? If we call it in the budget,
Well, to be honest with you, probably going the warrant article and what Marcia's suggesting is the better way to go, because you avoid a spike in your operating budget. Albeit a very small operating budget for conservation, but 3,000 to a small number looks like a 40% increase probably.
And it's kind of a one-off,
Right.
it is.
so that should be more on the warrant
Right, so you're
side.
gonna go
All So we delete it from the
Yeah, remove it from the budget line.
Operating
line
budget.
item. Okay, so we've solved that.
Okay,
$3,000.
Hopefully, we don't have any other major issues to
Now,
solve tonight.
are we doing a warrant article for that?
Yes,
Yes.
and that's the number 3 warrant article that we
Which we
talked
haven't
about.
even worded really,
Okay.
but that's gonna be for the
Okay.
Linda will have boilerplate.
$3,000.
Right, she'll have boilerplate language.
And that's the amount it's
'Cause-
gonna be, or
Yeah.
are we going to do any more than that?
Can we say up to 5,000 or something like that?
I'm just afraid, because
So
I'm
the-
gonna be looking at the closing
So-
statement when it comes in too.
the existing
And-
warrant article that we have every year for $5,000 is to buy this, help me understand,
That's
by
a-
this year's taxation,
Yep.
raise 5,000 and put it
It's a-
into the capital
It's a
reserve.
contribution to
Yeah.
that fund,
Yeah.
that
Right.
account.
Okay, so that adds into the town's new bottom line every year.
Yep.
Okay, and so are you looking to maintain that at 5 and just take the 3,000 that you might need out of that?
And have
But
two?
with a
Well,
separate warrant
see,
article?
This is what I
Or
was
do you need to-
suggesting is
It's separate.
not going to the taxpayers twice, because that's really what you're doing, because you already took $5,000 out of them in years past, well, just last year.
Right,
Every year.
If we're gonna do, what I'm suggesting is, let's forego the $5,000 contribution, because it's pointless, kind of, if we're talking about taking 5,000 out to spend. Let's just give the new taxation a break, take a year off from that, do a warrant article to pull 5,000 from the existing fund to potentially spend on legal review and other things related
and
to.
acquisition and conservation
the-
purposes.
Right,
Gotta be worded that way.
right.
So
No,
it'll be worded like the forest maintenance article. You're setting money aside.
Very, very similar,
Yeah.
very, very similar.
And it can say no amount to be raised by, just like that.
Right, it'll be very similar to that, it's just a different fund reference and a different amount.
Yep,
I think that's a great resolution.
yep,
So not to ask people to contribute again this year.
Correct.
Well, just this year, with the understanding that what we've already said, we're facing some pretty significant hurdles coming down.
And leave it at 5.
And let's face it, the most important thing is to get this conservation easement resolved one way, shape, or
Right.
form in 2025, hopefully. We're not gonna do anything else different, and town meeting is the one and only opportunity you have to withdraw from that fund.
So we're gonna get-
So whether it grows 5,000 and we take, it's a net zero if we did them both.
Well,
So Joy, we're gonna get rid of the third one. We don't need the third one now.
We're going to get rid of the usual annual
Oh, we're
raise and appropriate of
Well,
5,000.
I think we should vote on that.
And then, well, we're just talking it out, and then replace it with a very similarly worded to the forest maintenance
For 5,000.
for 5,000 for
Okay.
the, because that will cover the 3,000 that you're talking about, and then anything else that might.
Potentially.
Well,
we're
but
getting-
potentially being more than
Right.
3,000.
Right.
So we had 4. So we were going 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, we don't do 2.
No, we had
We
two,
had-
two on the, there were 2 on the
There's 2
agenda,
here.
and we talked about 2 others.
Right, so we're gonna get rid of the other 2, right? Am I correct,
But,
everybody?
Well,
'Cause I'm
no,
starting to lose my
no, no, no,
mind.
No, no.
no. So, let's
We
do them
always-
one at a time, and I'll do it by motion, and then we
That would be
can, we
much
can
better.
create a list or
Much better
not.
because
Yeah.
So, the first one, as far as I know, that you had on the agenda
Is
was
Article
the
X.
ordinary contribution that we do most every year,
Oh,
the $5,000.
okay, we'll jump to the second one.
So that's
Okay.
coming off.
So I make a motion that we not do that this year,
Not do 5,000.
because there'll be a secondary motion a couple sentences from now.
So we need to open that for discussion.
Okay,
We need a second to get it on the table.
I second.
okay, vote. all-
I feel that people should have the right to contribute or not contribute. The $5,000 is, it's just 4 or 5 cents per thousand on their taxes. And that they contributed every year, and that they contribute because they want to support conservation. And that if they want to do it, they'll vote for it, and if they don't want to do it, they won't vote for it. But I feel like we should give, the town should decide whether or not they want to contribute to the fund.
Right. But when the Board of Selectmen has asked every other department to hold the line and/or reduce their budget,
Right.
I think it's a slap in the face to the other departments to suggest that we're gonna ask for $5,000 contribution, then we're gonna ask to spend up to $5,000, that's 10,000. And that's not
No,
holding the
because they
line.
were making the money that's already in the account, it's not an additional
Correct,
$10,000.
I understand that, but it's still taxpayer dollars.
And what happened in the past couple budget meetings, including the one that just happened this Tuesday, is, as Mike just said, Budget Committee is pushing very hard. No new taxes, no increases, and everybody needs to, if their budget has, creeped up for the next year, go back and slash it and bring it back to a 0.
But this really isn't a new tax, because we've asked for it every year.
Right, but it's
But
new
it's- but it's-
taxation.
It's an additional 5,000.
Everything on the warrant is subject to the acts. Right.
So
Right.
it just follows with what's been asked, people have been asking in meetings, the Budget
But-
Committee is asking, it is coming
So
before the
I'd
select
just like to
board
put that to a
Okay,
vote so we can,
Let's vote.
So not
All-
do the $5,000 warrant
Right,
article
we're not
this
doing
year.
the 5,000. Vote yes or no.
all in favor of
Yes.
not doing it.
So Ted, Mike, Ralph, Joy,
just this year.
Okay,
And then maybe next year, it's a
No.
$2 million dam.
Marsh.
all right. the-
We'll
the
get
next-
we gotta get back on
So-
track after that.
So
All right.
my,
next
So
one.
that
my
passed.
next motion is, I'll make a motion that we do the article that we've done the last couple of years to withdraw
Just leave it the
$10,000
same as the $10,000.
with the similar language from the forest maintenance account,
Leave it the same.
the very same article to deal with the work that Tim does for us. And
Yep, I'm just gonna use that.
Yep, yep.
Perfect.
No
Number
changes.
X.
I think we should be prepared to answer how much money we spent this year of the 10,000.
Which
so
is
that-
about to come up in
We're
the
gonna
next
talk about that
topic.
next.
Next, yeah.
Let's just get through this first.
All right.
I'm gonna
Okay,
cry.
so
One at a
now,
time, here, Mark.
okay,
All right, so that
So-
motion's on the floor.
yeah.
So I will second a motion to
Okay,
keep that
and
as
a
is.
vote, please, yes?
Yes.
Everybody passed.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
so
it's
now
the-
I'm
now
gonna
it's
make,
the fi-
I'm
the
gonna
fi-
make a motion that we put forth a warrant article to withdraw not to exceed $5,000. However, Linda's gonna have that language from the capital reserve fund
Yep,
for the purposes of paying.
Land acquisition
Land
and
acquisition
conservation
and
purposes.
related
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Which, do we want to be so specific to say which may include attorney's fees? Just-
No,
No,
no.
that's,
just-
I think
we're just
that's,
gonna use
Land
that's,
acquisition
The broad brush.
sounds great.
Okay,
that's what
And
his
whoever-
email
Whoever
Alright.
puts it on the floor can explain that.
Right,
purposes. Okay, who's gonna second that one?
I'll second.
Ralph, okay?
All in favor? Yes.
Passed. Okay.
Okay.
And then, so the final one is whether we want to do, and I'll make a motion just so we can have the discussion and decide, a last warrant article to create an expendable fund for purposes
ETF.
of scholarships or for
scholarship.
conservation-related educational opportunities.
And, give me a
Okay.
minute.
And I think the
Conservation.
dollar
Conservation.
amount was $400, but,
I think we raised it to
it
5.
was
I think-
500 in the
We
budget.
paid 400 this year.
right, so I think probably inflation
Okay,
and
so
other
warrant
reasons,
article
500.
in the amount of $500.
Yep.
Okay.
And
You
then-
made that a motion, somebody needs a second?
Who's seconding?
Everybody.
I know, everybody raised their hand, I saw it, so somebody,
Oh.
one pick.
All in favor?
Okay.
Yes? Okay.
Okay, so at the end of the day, we have 3 warrant articles.
Yep.
All right, good.
Well, we have 4. 1, 2, 3.
No,
3.
3. One was
Axed
defeated.
one.
Oh, but we made a motion to defeat that one. I have 4
Right.
more, 4 motions. So
Right.
that's what I'm, that's
You
what I
have 4
meant.
motions, but
Jesus.
what we
3,
need to prepare going forward is 3
Yes.
warrant articles.
okay.
Yes.
All right. So why don't you go through?
Only
the-
one of which, up to, is $500 is new taxation.
Right.
So we're talking about 3 warrant articles that are gonna cost the town $500 total.
All right,
Thank you, Mike.
Well organized.
okay, so you have the issue related to the trees.
Correct. So, we're talking about the trees over by Leadmine
How
Road.
much have we spent of the account?
Okay, so
Being asked to tap.
that is what is left in our account that is not spent.
All right, so if I'm correct, this is the tree removal bill that has gone back and forth like a ping pong, volleyball,
Yes,
tennis
between
ball
DPW
for
and
months.
Us, yes.
This was the one where DPW had the trees removed
Well,
from,
hay tree.
yes, a very expensive tree, yes, it's for
Leadmine Road, right?
$2,772.
Was it Leadmine Road, was it
It was
over?
off of
Yeah,
Leadmine,
Leadmine Road, yeah.
the bogs off of
Right.
Leadmine,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And the
Wait,
discussion.
wait a second.
Sure.
This is more than just one tree.
Trees, multiple trees.
Which,
I
so,
think
it was the big one that they needed the crane for.
Correct.
But they
then-
took
And then
down
all the
more
ones
than-
that they pulled out of the
Yeah,
water.
they pulled more out.
On the other side.
They
That-
did
that-
more
I
work.
thought that was a separate bill.
The large tree was paid, they paid for
Yeah, I
that.
think it was 6,500, I want to say, and they paid for that, and then this was for like 4
This
trees that were
for
in the
the other
water.
trees.
Right,
Correct.
yes. Blocking, it was blocking.
Either way,
So,
the dollar amount that we have available,
so the conversation that went back and forth was that the Conservation Commission felt that they wouldn't have removed the trees from the bog because the turtles would have loved it and had a good life. And the Conservation Commission didn't make the call to remove the trees. It was done outside by the DPW. And DPW said, yes, that was my call as DPW. So it just has gone back and forth. And at one point, John Rue said, it's paid, move on. And then at another point, it was also said, if we have the money, we'll do it. So here we are. There's $4,782.50 in the forest maintenance account. Do we have any other bills coming in from Tim or any other forest maintenance bills that we
Not
see
that I
coming
know
down the
of.
pipeline in the next 20 whatever days?
I
before
don't,
the end of
not
the
that I
budget
know
year?
of, I haven't heard
well,
a
it's
peep from
worth,
him.
that's worth a question to him specifically. Hey, is there anything you haven't invoiced us for? Because right now, everybody's running that spoon around the edge of the bowl, scraping up everything that they can find.
We can make a
That makes me
motion,
crazy.
we can make a motion if there's
Run it.
$2,700 available.
I'll make a motion that if Tim has submitted all invoices and he's paid in full, and we have remaining funds available, that the Conservation Commission
What
pay
is it
that
that's
bill
available?
from
Right,
that.
okay.
At this point,
I was gonna say the same thing.
We don't know if we have all Tim's invoices.
Right.
But at this point, there's $4,782.50
Oh.
left of the $10,000 that was set aside
What
last
was
year.
the
the
Trying
$2,700.
Trying to kick the horse, get this thing moving.
To
All right.
remove the 4 trees. we
All right,
bought.
I need a
that's-
second
Okay.
to vote.
That's
Second
what
on
they
the
have,
mo- I'll
it's been
second it.
paid. They're just asking the Conservation Commission if they will
That's,
pass the money
All right.
to
I'll hit it in a
DPW
Okay.
budget.
Okay, so is
Hey,
there?
hey, hey, we gotta get back on track here, we're going.
there's a
we're on
motion
track,
if there's
guys.
money available.
Well,
No, I was just explaining to her.
Oh.
We were on track. We were just
are we
explaining.
giving them all the money, or are we giving them what?
$2,700.
If there is the motion
If
is
Tim's-
that if we have all Tim's invoices
all
and
invoices,
that
and any funds available,
any funds available,
MCC will pay whatever, you've got my paperwork.
$2,772.50 for tree removal for the trees in the
Okay.
ponds.
There's a motion on the floor, so we need a
Thanks,
vote.
Joe.
Yes?
So the discussion with that is all done? That we're gonna just do that? We'd agree to do that?
That is the motion on the floor
Yes.
is,
Right.
do we want, is the Conservation Commission voting to, if there is money left, reimbursing the DPW for having the trees removed?
But we didn't have any say in how many trees we wanted removed,
That's correct.
or,
Which is why it's gone back and forth and back and
It's-
forth and back and
it's-
forth.
I think we're getting a little wrapped around the axle there because
Yeah.
Tim was involved in the conversation
Right.
with all of the trees that were removed down there.
Yeah.
And
Right.
for lack of a better, well, he actually is our agent.
right.
So nothing was done that he objected to.
Right.
Right, he hired 2 guys that came in and did the work.
Right, but I think this bill is the crane service that the DPW did to get that big leaner on the opposite
No,
side.
No, they had to
No, it's the four-
outsource
it's
that.
the four
They
trees.
outsourced
They
it
had to
to
outsource
2
that.
guys.
That was
I
like
don't know
six,
who
that
they
was over
were.
$6,000.
That
They
was a
were,
separate activity.
Oh,
Yeah, I
That
didn't
was
think what their
separate
names
as-
were.
but
okay,
Right.
well,
it's the
whatever.
four- it's
My
the four-
motion's on the floor, can I get a vote?
And we need a vote. All in favor?
So Ted, Mike, Ralph, which way are you going?
I don't know.
Gotta give me something.
I know, I've gone
somebody.
back and forth on this
It
one.
doesn't make,
Yeah.
it's
It makes
all.
no difference.
It
It's
makes
money
no
spent,
difference.
it's money spent, but-
It- Whether it came out of our budget or
Yes, no?
DPW.
No?
I'm
Yes?
not saying
Well, all right,
that, I
here's-
just don't know.
It doesn't make any
So here's my question, does the money carry over? What is not spent, does that
No.
carry over?
It goes
next year?
back into the
Goes
fund.
Back in?
Yeah.
This fund that we're talking about is that $10,000 warrant
$10,000.
article.
Right.
That if it's not spent in this FY,
So we-
I don't know how that happens, but it flows back into the fund
So
that
there's
it came from.
$64,700 in that account. And if every year we take out 10,000 and we spend 10,000, we have 6 years left in that account.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to vote no, because I sat where Mike is sitting and asked the DPW director, was the Conservation Commission involved in making this decision to remove these 4 trees? And the Conservation Commission later had to say, well, no, actually wouldn't have. So I'm going to stick with that.
Okay, so we have-
We did approve the money.
We have
Three yes, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
I thought we did approve the money
No.
for the big tree at the other side.
No, that was different.
I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill. This is $2,700, come on.
Well, it's not, it passed.
But it would,
But I'm just going from my perspective of being at
Yeah.
the selectmen's table and having that side of it and sitting at this table, and I have a
Well,
lot
I-
more than just sitting at this table.
I participated in
for it,
that
so.
discussion, and effectively, I agreed with Adam at that point. It was like, okay, we're dealing with $2,700, let's get it over with.
well, my only argument is that it's not a finite account, so.
Okay, so do we have
can't spend
anything else?
indiscriminately.
This has
I
been an interesting meeting.
got that in, and I got that in, I don't know if you want them, I don't.
Oh.
Good luck, Kate,
All
Huh?
right,
writing this
All
up.
right.
I'm gonna have a tough time with this one.
And then,
Yep.
just super quick selections list was just, we already talked about SLAM, they're doing the watershed management, they are putting it was approved by, or supported by the Conservation Commission, by the Budget Committee and the Select Boards. The Select Board are putting the warrant article, or putting the article on the warrant for the $100,000 loan, basically. And it's gonna have a 60-day pay, so that when they have to pay the consultants, they can then go to the government and say, we have to pay, can we have this
Here's the
money now?
invoice.
It'll come over, then it'll go over. So it really should never hit the pocket of the taxpayer. And we had asked them a couple of times to come back with kind of more of that level of detail, and they did. And they, so that is
And they're
gonna be on
pay
them.
the interest if there's.
And they're gonna pay the $2,000, maybe $3,000 interest.
Yeah,
Slam this up.
1%.
No, they said they'd be responsible
Yep.
if,
Yep.
so there's
Yep.
no real,
And they've submitted several different articles from other towns in the way they phrased it. The only weird thing is that some of the towns phrased it has to be a 2/3 vote. So,
do you think that there might be some help with the
That's
dam
just
in that?
information.
Okay, all right.
It's nothing.
There,
that's just for the report.
okay, as far as correspondence,
They will overlap, yes.
okay. Correspondence, there is a alleged violation, and this is an environmental issue with a property in Edelweiss, 39 into Lincoln Circle. So we're on notice that they remove vegetation beyond the permissible limits. So it's up to the property owner to deal with that.
We just get copies.
You just
of
don't-
it.
We just get
Yeah.
copies, so
Yeah.
we're
Select board
informed
copy
of
of
the,
that, yeah.
of the issue. The other is an expedited minimum impact wetlands application, and that is filed, let's see, where is the location on this thing?
It's gonna be like page 2.
Page
Yeah,
2.
That's a book.
There it is. 451 Plains Road. So that is in process at this point. So they filed the application for the permit. Okay, anything else that we got?
Just have one question for Mike. In the last meeting, you talked about planting crabapple trees for turkey habitat. Is there a program that would sponsor those, or provide the trees for us to plant, or?
There used to be through Fish and Game, and there may still be. It
Because
would-
those are the kinds of things that I think would be a really interesting and worthwhile
Right.
pursuit for us. And we've got plenty of forests where we could hopefully, but Tim could, I know we planted some things up on the Wold lot years ago.
Right.
Some apple trees, and I don't know what happened to those, if they're still there, but
They're treated.
that kind of,
It was an open space and it's now closed.
wildlife management things that we have, we probably should open that up again. We should have Tim open up that spot again. We had a view easement, and we had a view vista for people who walked in there, and we should probably keep that open, and we maybe could plant trees or Tim could recommend good places that we could put crabapple trees.
Okay. All right. Unless we have anything else, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor? Yes.
If you insist.
On to the next one.
It was too much fun.
Speak for yourself. I gotta
Oh, you oughta